Welcome back to our channel. I want to thank you for joining. If you are watching for the first time, we appreciate your time as always. Here we talk about geostrategic relationship on how Africa navigates this complex world of big fishes that want to swallow small fishes. It is important at this time that African nations come to realize that the global strategic relationship has changed and the dynamics is no longer what it used to be. More importantly, if you see big players in the economic environment, like the country of India being kicked under the bus by the United States of America, South Africa coming under tremendous pressure regards to tariff, more importantly, African nations at the moment, looking at those in these countries across the Sahel, who have break out from the colonial organization called ECOWAS and are looking for the alternative. These nations have been dealing with one of the most barbaric colonial masters that have been known in centuries across the continent of Africa that continue to apologize as a result of its engagement in the region. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because it comes at a time where the continent of Africa is looking for options regards to its existence and more importantly work with partners that can provide them the alternative. It is important that colonialism has a huge impact in the countries across the region, and more importantly, it comes at a moment where the former head of state of the country of South Africa, who understands the dynamics regards to global collaboration, has come out clear in a recent meeting talking about the peace and security issues in the continent of Africa. To silence the gun, came out and said the continent of Africa must wake up at this time because the Horn of Africa, which is a very strategic zone in the continent of Africa, is facing tremendous difficulties and challenges at this time, that the continent must wake up, otherwise it will be laughed at by geopolitical partners. Looking at the country of Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, and a whole lot of countries that are facing tremendous difficulties. The African Union has gone mute in a number of areas. However, we've seen recently how the United States of America has pressured a country who was once rolled a red carpet, the country of Kenya. As a result of that, Kenya is making a diversification to other countries like the country of China. And more importantly, recently the president of Kenya received one of the factions of the country of Sudan. And a United States of America senator just woke up from nowhere, all of a sudden start feeling so concerned about the country of Kenya. Kenyans, if you are watching, if the United States geostrategically start feeling so concerned about your particular geopolitical engagement beyond your borders, you got to pay attention. The regional organization, IGAD, has to an extent move on fast to see how to resolve the conflict in this region. So if you hear Mr. Mbeki coming out talking about the Horn of Africa, is the most strategic zone in the continent of Africa, keep the Sahel aside, this region, if there is just no peace in this area, they're going to be catastrophic in a number of areas. Let's play this clip.
There was a question that was posed about the Horn of Africa, I think by the chairperson of our foundation, who asked about integration of the Horn of Africa. I used to chair a panel of the African Union, which was charged with the task of looking at this matter of peace and stability and so on in the Horn of Africa. So one of the things we did was we thought that let's go to each one of the Fawzia mentioned these 8 countries that are in the Horn. Let's go to each one of them to say, you are part of the Horn of Africa. On these issues of possible integration of the Horn, what's your view? And in these countries, we would meet the government, we'd meet the parliament, we'd meet civil society, so that we consult everybody, not just government. What is your view about these issues? Is it possible to have security arrangements looking at the Horn? Is it possible to have economic integration? In all of these questions. And what is to be done? Government, civil society, parliament, everybody. We went to Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda, posing the same question and getting responses. We're going to start with Sudan when an uprising started, which removed President Bashir. So to suspend that, as we're considering dealing with Ethiopia, war broke out in Ethiopia. So we referred the matter of that resolution of that conflict in Ethiopia between Addis Ababa and Mekele, between Addis Ababa and Tigray. We raised the matter with the Peace and Security Council of the OAU to say, can you please sort out this thing? Get this thing peace, because it's this, apart from anything else, we can't continue our work of engaging these countries about integration of the Horn until this war is sorted out. And practically they all refused. The Peace and Security Council of the African Union refused to deal with the matter of the conflict in Ethiopia. When we wrote the letter to the chair of the Peace and Security Council for that month, he didn't respond until he had finished his month. Then he responded and said, thank you very much for a very important letter. Please ask my successor. They refused to deal with it. And the problem about it is that that stopped the engagement on the issue of the Horn of Africa. That process towards its integration.
The Horn of Africa, it's a strategic zone, like I've pointed out. This particular area in the continent of Africa must see some peace. If there is just no peace in this area, it could have a spillover, as we've seen countries like Uganda and a whole lot of nations, including the country of Kenya, that continue to push hard. More importantly, South Sudan is going through tremendous difficulties. As we've seen most recently, South Sudan went to a deal, some particular kind of a deal, to receive some call them deportees, I call them criminals, that have been sent to the country of South Sudan in a particular kind of a deal. This nation is facing incredible difficulties at the moment without some peace in certain areas, and is still engaged with the United States of America with regards to geo-collaboration in areas where it needs to take some migrants, which are normally not all from the country of South Sudan, are coming from a whole lot of nations. It comes at a time when the country of Sudan, I would say, is the most abandoned conflict in the continent of Africa at this critical time in Africa's history. We've seen different factions going their ways, the different generals who are claiming to have full control of the country of Sudan. The continent of Africa must sit up at this time and continue to look at the internal challenges that they are facing, because the European Union are not coming to save you. The Russians can provide you some support, but not entirely the support. The country of China can provide you some guidance economically, but they're not going to solve your problem. The United States of America is at a crossroads in the continent of Africa at the moment, and more importantly, African nation must sit up because no one is coming to save you. Let's play this clip.
I think one of the colleagues who talked about this mentioned is that with regard to the Horn, you also have got to deal with its other neighbors across the Red Sea. So we'd already been to Qatar, we'd been to Egypt, we're going to Saudi Arabia, we're going to go to the UAE about this matter, because you can't sort out the problems of the Horn of Africa without that kind of engagement. The matter is seized, it's not moving. And in reality, my view, my sense, is that the Horn of Africa is developing in a negative way. If you look at Somalia, the Al-Shabaab is sitting all over Somalia, right up to the boundaries of Mogadishu. And indeed, the people have said to me that even the government of Somalia really, in terms of Mogadishu, is confined to what is called the green zone. People have talked about tensions that have arisen between Ethiopia and Eritrea, which may break out into war, or problems that have arisen among the Tigrayans. So I'm saying, colleagues, if you look at the matter practically about what is happening in the Horn of Africa, the signals are negative. But you can't just interpret the thing and say, how do we change it? So one of the things that is going to happen is that this panel of ours, which was mandated many years ago to deal with the Horn of Africa, we are going to submit a new report to the African Union in order to give it the possibility to the African Union to resume the discussion about the future of the Horn of Africa, which has died. So I'm saying the practical reality about the Horn is that the Horn of Africa is moving in the wrong direction with regard to all of these matters that were taught about disintegration, peace, stability, and all that. Sudan is at war. South Sudan is whatever South Sudan is doing. Somalia is at war. All over the place. One of our colleagues mentioned that Djibouti is hosting so many bases there, Chinese, American, this and that and the other. As this dialogue, we say we have interpreted the Horn in these various ways. What is it that we do to change it?
If the continent of Africa will continue to hope that the geostrategic partner will come and resolve internal conflicts, then it comes to a point that reminds me of when African leaders went to the country of Russia and Ukraine to discuss peace, where they were cold beggars at that particular time, and more importantly, something that I agree that the global media questioned, that if Africa cannot resolve its own issue within its own continent, why is it that the continent of Africa feels so bold to take a delegation, the country of Russia and Ukraine, to resolve those issues? Not just talking about the issues looking with the country of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Sudan, and a number of conflicts across the continent of Africa, which are hidden under the radar, which are very important. Africa, at this stage, if you cannot take up the responsibility and start resolving the issues which are impacting your economy, as I've always said, security is vital. If there is just no security, there's not going to be any investment coming from your geostrategic investors who should be looking at the continent as one of the regions where Africa at the moment is emerging, but it needs stable security that can provide them the guidance that they need and to ensure investors and their own community that the countries are up to task. Let's play this clip.
And in my view, to change the Horn is not only to deal with the Horn as a whole, but also to deal with its individual component parts. You got to engage the Sudanese. We tried to engage the Sudanese last year. Unfortunately, all factions came. Government, SRF, civil society, to say, what do we do? That problem remains. What do we do to assist the people of South Sudan? They thought that we're going to have elections, I think by the end of this year, and they can't. Conditions don't exist to elect a new government. Our colleagues from South Sudan here will remember a very, very important document. In 2004, there was a lot of tension within the leadership of the SPLM, SPLA. So there was an emergency conference in December 2004 to sort out these problems. Unfortunately, somebody kept very detailed minutes of that conference. That's how I get to know about it. And the minutes that are written, not in a normal way, in the sense that abnormal in this sense, that they would have the names of the speakers. Thabo Mbeki said the following thing. Smangmang said the following thing. So you've got a whole picture of the leadership of the SPLM and the views that they expressed. One of the decisions at the end of that meeting was, next month, January 2005, we are signing the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, which is going to end the war between us and Sudan and Khartoum, and create the possibility for a referendum for us as South Sudanese to decide our future. Can we please shelve our differences and sign this thing, document which gives us possibilities, and then we can continue to discuss our problems. Interesting things, colleagues, the reason I mentioned this paper. If you looked at those minutes today and looked at South Sudan today, you would find that a lot of those actors that appear here in those minutes are still active today. John Garang has passed away. May his soul rest in peace. Others have. But a lot of your players, President Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, they are all in this. I'm mentioning that to say that we've got to, in terms of this dialogue, say what is it that we do to help the people of South Sudan. You read those minutes and you say, but it's the same people who were quarreling in December 2004. They are still quarreling now, 21 years later. Same people, probably same issues. How do you deal with that problem? To understand, to interpret the problem, but to change it, it becomes a critically important issue. I'll come back to that question of change. So that we're going to have to do something about the Horn of Africa in that detailed sense, not only the Horn as a region, but some of the individual states in the Horn.
Let me know in the comment section what you think in regards to Mr. Mbeki's own comments and why the Horn of Africa is one of the most important regions in the continent of Africa, a hotspot. I would say that if African nations cannot sit up, and events like these are where the leaders come face to face and say the honest issues, because it comes at a time when Africa must stand up and shoulder its responsibility in terms of security, as we all saw most recently that Nigeria, the darling of the United States of America, has woken up from sleep and is saying that it is ready to host African leaders, most recently the country, Nigeria's own capital, Abuja, where African security heads came up and said they want to step up to the plate and defend the continent to an extent. Otherwise, you will see military bases from the United States of America, France, including China and Russia, who will be occupying the continent of Africa, and all Africans will do is to complain. I want to thank you for watching. Drop me a comment. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.